I do more than one thing. And a lot of people criticize me and tell me I need to focus on one thing and do that well and only do that. But in my life, I always have many, many things going on at the same time. And there always seems to be like some ray of hope in something that I'm working on.
Welcome to Hustleshare, the podcast that features the daily grinds of unique hustlers around the world to show not our differences, but that our hustles are very much alike. Now here's your host, Ronster Bae-pyong.
Welcome to episode 17 of the Hustleshare podcast. My name is Ronster, and I'm your host. And this episode is brought to you by Payroll Hero, a time, attendance, scheduling, HR, and payroll solution for Philippine companies. If you're new to the show, we'd like to welcome you because we love having new hustlers on the show. And you're one of them, so thank you for being here today. Now, to give you a heads up of what we do here, technically, Hustleshare is a podcast that lets you improve your hustle by learning from other hustlers. How do we do that? Literally, what we do here is we talk about the grit, the grime, and everything else in between. So we get to improve our own hustle by listening from other hustlers, talk about their pain, their struggles, and their journey and how they got to where they are now. Now again, like what I always say in every episode, I'd like to give you a heads up or a warning that there's a lot of adult content in this podcast. So please do turn the volume down if you're in public, or make sure that there's no kids around, because we cuss a lot in this podcast. Now, this episode is very, very unexpected because this guy that we're about to feature didn't really come up to meet with me to talk about his life and his journey. But somehow, through meeting with him, I found out that his story is extraordinary, and I think a lot of people need to hear it because this is going to be a very, very great episode. And our guest for this episode is Mr. PJ Entrepreneur. Yes, that is his real name. His last name is Entrepreneur. And in this episode, we're going to talk about his humble beginnings growing up in New York and how he literally started this journey by selling pebbles and rocks from the beach and sold them as jewelry when she was young. The other amazing thing that he's going to talk about is how he was able to meet Tommy Hilfiger when he was starting out, and how Tommy Hilfiger inspired him to be an entrepreneur, and how he made a fortune buying real estate. He is also going to talk about how he ended up being in Asia and all the way to the Philippines, and the mystery behind his name. And most importantly, he shared so many tips and tricks that a lot of us can use and implement in our own hustle as well. So get ready to be blown away as much as I did when I met this man. And let's begin this episode right now. Welcome to the latest episode of the Hustleshare podcast. Today is very interesting because I kind of ambushed him. Our next guest here today. He had no idea that we're actually going to be doing a podcast. We were supposed to be doing chatbots, but hey, your story is quite interesting. And before he even dropped by to the show, he sent me a whole list of things he's been able to like, this guy is pretty cool to feature in the podcast. His name is PJ Entrepreneur. PJ, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
All right. So again, I apologize if I had to ambush you and you had no idea that we're going to be doing this. But again, this is Hustleshare, and if I haven't told you that earlier prior to us recording this, this is a podcast that features the daily hustles of people that are especially successful in what they do. And the objective is to let other people, our hustlers who are listening now, to improve their hustle, right? So pick a thing or two that they can put. But you have a very interesting story. But before we get to that, PJ, how did you become PJ Entrepreneur? Well,
my former name was Paul Jones.
Okay.
And it's kind of an interesting story.
Okay.
I met some people in China.
Okay.
When I was sourcing, I was sourcing underwear for somebody in the Philippines.
Okay.
And they were selling Paul Smith underwear.
Paul Smith.
And
right.
they had some kind of a trademark problem one time.
Yep.
And off the top of my head, I said, "Why don't you call it Paul Jones?" and so
you lent your name.
They did that, and it solved their problem.
Okay.
And eventually, it got very successful.
Wow.
And it was all underwear, and to me, it was very embarrassing. I didn't want to have my name connected to underwear, but I already told my friends you can do it, and I didn't want to be known as the underwear guy.
But if you're listening to this and you look to your underwear, your undies, and it says Paul Jones, you're listening to your underwear talk right now.
Well, right now, Paul Jones is more into men's clothing, and if you search on Amazon, you'll see many, many styles of.
Wow! So they continue the brand, with your name.
It's very popular for shirts and sweaters and things like that, and probably will be expanding soon. There's some things I can't really talk about, but anyway, it was very successful.
And you're still part of this, not anymore.
Well, I just basically gave my name to my friends.
Wow.
I don't really focus on the money, and I had no idea it was going to be successful.
Okay.
But these people are now...
You're trying to help them out at that time.
They're very close to me, like my own family. I call them my Chinese family.
Okay.
And so, anyway... They have this brand, Paul Jones, and then they came to me one day and asked me, can I help them with a ladies brand? Okay, and they had some brand that they had, and I said it doesn't sound too good, and so they said, will you help us come up with another name? Okay. And I did, and basically the name is Grace Karen.
Grace Karen.
And if you search on Amazon, you'll see it's got the #1 best-selling dress on Amazon right now.
No way.
Yeah, and there's
you're the genie of good branding.
There's about 8,000 reviews, and the name didn't just come up. There was a lot of research.
Yeah.
And at the time, I didn't really know a lot about China. I had just met these people.
Okay.
And then we had this minor success with Paul Jones, and then they asked me for help, and I said, sure, I'll help you, but I don't know anything about fashion. Basically the only thing that I knew about fashion was in New York State. I used to own a building that in a hometown of Tommy Hilfiger.
Got it. So now this is where you started. We're riding the time machine, and that's leading me to my next question.
Well, I started before that. We'll get into that later.
Okay,
but
cool.
Anyway, I owned this building in upstate New York, and one day this guy comes walking by, and he's looking up at the building, and he says, I'm wondering, what you're doing here. And I was renovating and, putting my company in there and renting it out.
Right. I saw this on the video you showed me. Yeah, your early days and whatnot. Right.
So anyway, he said, I'm Tommy Hilfiger. Do you know who I am? And I said, no, I don't. This is 1989. And so it was
89.
Yeah, it was right around the time when he had this big billboard that made him what he is.
Right.
So no, I didn't know him, but he had just started to advertise in the New York Times, and some people knew about him. After he left, I realized who he was. But he asked me if he could use the second floor of my building, which was an old department store, and I believe his mom used to work in that department store.
No way.
So
there's a little bit of heritage in that already.
Yeah, he did a charity event.
Wow.
In that on the second floor of our building, and we raised $4,000 for the United Way. What? And he gave away Tommy Hilfiger bags before anybody
before it became again, kids, if you're listening to this and you were born in the late 90s or whatever have you, right? Tommy Hilfiger is a real person, right? he went up to PJ's building. So wow, that is
and he also has a really interesting story because he used to work pumping gas in a Hess gas station. Now,
no way.
If you look at the Hess logo, the Hess logo is very similar to the Tommy Hilfiger logo.
So
only
that's
instead
where
of being green, it's blue and red.
Yes, yes.
And then, he used to dream about fashion and having a business. And then he opened up a place. I forget what it was called, but he was selling blue jeans, and he had 2 or 3 locations, and he went bankrupt. And then after he went bankrupt, he went to New York City.
Okay.
And this is a story about him too. But anyway.
No, but it's good because people need to hear this. This is Hustleshare,
yeah,
right?
So anyway, it inspired me. So he went to New York City, and he worked for Gloria Vanderbilt, and then he had a line called Tommy Hill. all
Tommy
these things.
Hill.
Yeah, but
Okay.
it didn't work out. And eventually, I believe that he met a guy, I think it's Mirjani, an Indian guy from Hong Kong, who gave him money to get started. And then he bought this billboard for, I think it was $160,000.
Wow.
And it had the names of fashion designers. And then it said Tommy was the last one, you know.
Shoot.
And everybody's like, Tommy who? And anyway, that's how he got famous when they
Really?
had
So it's
Fashion
the
Week
billboard.
in New York. Yeah.
So wow.
So
That's
anyway,
amazing.
this kind of inspired me, and
Okay.
you know, I told my friends, I was like, I don't know anything about fashion. I like wear the same thing every day, and and I, you know,
What was your outfits like back then in '89?
well, just
Right.
plain stuff. I'm not
Okay.
really a fashion kind of person.
Okay.
So anyway, when they asked me about the ladies' clothing line, I'm like, I never bought a dress in my life. I don't
Okay.
know anything about fashion, but I'm
Okay.
willing to help you.
Got it.
Because they sort of said you're a branding genius, you know, to come
Okay.
up with this,
Okay.
and it was successful. So, anyway, we came up with the name Grace Karen after a lot of work and also
Right.
a trip to the factories, because I said, I'm only going to help you if you let me see the factories, because at that time I was brainwashed by the media and believing all these factories had little kids working and people were
Back
not being
then,
treated
right.
well and
Yeah,
all that.
yeah.
So I said, you take me to the factory and
To make
you know,
sure that there's nothing crazy going on in here.
so I
Right.
went on a trip with her and her boyfriend at the time, and they're now husband and wife and have a little kid. But anyway, we went together, and you know, sometime after the trip, we came up with a whole bunch of names, and you know, checking the domain names and the trademark issues and all that, and we came up with Grace Karen, got the trademark on it.
Wow.
And then they, you know, put
in
that
one trip. You got
well, it
the
was
whole
one
brand-
trip, but I think the whole thing may have taken like a month from
Still, that's
the beginning
laser quick.
to
Yeah.
right. But it wasn't an immediate success. But
Okay.
over the last, I guess it's probably about 8 years,
Right.
something like that. It's now the #1 best-selling dress. Now there's many styles, but I'm just talking about one particular style is the #1 dress and has over 8,000 real reviews.
Look
no
it up,
fake
guys.
reviews.
Grace Karen and Amazon.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, it's kind of a success that I never expected, and you know,
Who would have thought that there was a dude?
Since
that
then,
actually
I've
made that,
developed
right?
many brands, you know, well-known
Right.
brands for this company, and also others that I do it on a consulting basis that people pay me money, and I have many stories of I develop a brand for one thing and then it fails, and then they put it on something else and it is a huge success, even though that brand.
So you have
was
that
not-
Midas touch in terms of creating brands for
yeah,
se.
but I have a lot of failures too. The thing is, I do a lot of things, and I'm not afraid of failure. I don't really care. You know, I learn from every failure, so I like to try. And if I don't get it right, I try again, or put it to the side and come back years later.
Okay.
And I have many things that I've worked on for many years that I come
Right.
back to, and then it becomes a big success, and people's like, "Wow, overnight success." But no,
Right,
not
but they
really.
don't understand
many
that you have-
failures
yeah,
along
correct.
the way to get to that point.
Okay, now PJ, we kind of went to the time machine. Let's go all the way back. Let's go back to the DeLorean.
Okay.
What was your first venture ever, and how did you decide that hey, I'm going to be an entrepreneur?
Well, I think it's in your blood. I never
Okay.
really decided that I was going to be one.
Okay.
I was 9 years old.
Wow.
Okay, and my family was not very wealthy.
Okay.
In fact, we grew up, and my family was the only one in the town of like 30,000 people with no television. Okay, and I used to really resent that.
Yeah, that's a big deal because that's the only
You know, at one time maybe it was a money issue, and then when it wasn't a money issue anymore, my parents said, you know, well, we've gotten along with it without it this long, we might as well keep going. And you kids are different, you know, you're involved in a lot of other things. So anyway, when I was about 9 years old, I wanted to have my own money.
Okay.
So if I wanted to buy something, I could buy it.
earn it, right?
So what I did was I picked up some stones on the beach, and then
Was this in New York still?
In New York on the
Okay.
beach. I think it's Long Beach or something, or
Okay.
Rockaway Beach, something like
Right.
that. Actually, I think it was Rockaway Beach because it was with my aunt, and she took me to the beach, and I picked up some stones, and then I took her clear nail polish and I shined them.
Ah,
And then
wow.
I turned it into some jewelry, and
No
then I sold that
way.
jewelry. And, you know, 9-year-old kid selling jewelry, a lot of people, I don't know whether they like the jewelry or not, but but you get the pity sales or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I started selling the jewelry, and I got interested in that, and then eventually I got a tumbler which actually tumbled the stones and polished them.
Wow.
And I got into making jewelry, starting around 9 years old.
No way. Wow, that is a crazy story.
Yeah, so I mean that's how I got started, and then after a while I sort of like not really lost interest, but I got into woodworking. And so I was making picture frames, like oval picture frames and plaques and things like that. So that was like my second business.
Right.
Then I got a job working for a hardware department in a family-owned lumber yard. Yeah. And I just learned so much. I was 14. I think it was the day I turned 14 that I got this job. And I worked there after school, as well as I would deliver my papers, and then I would go to this job.
No, wow.
And,
that's crazy. While studying still.
Yeah, I was in school, high school or junior high, whatever it is.
Yep.
And so then I had this paper out. I would deliver the papers, then go to work.
Right.
And I just learned so much.
Right.
And eventually, when I was about 19, I accidentally read a classified ad, and I sent my resume in. I never did it before, to this company in New York City, which was a big, well-known hardware wholesaler.
Okay.
And I wasn't expecting anything. I just wanted to see what
try
it
your
was
luck.
like, and I had never gone to New York City on my own.
Wow.
I live about 30 minutes away on the Long Island Railroad. Very easy to get there, but it wasn't the thing that we normally did.
Yeah, Wall Street, right.
So I sent his resume, and then I get a phone call. It's like, we want to interview you. And I was like, wow, I'm shocked, you know. So anyway, I went there, and I was dressed kind of casual. I had like some kind of like a sort of a denim jacket, but not blue denim. It was, I don't know, some.
What year was this? Like around
1977, I think, something like that.
That was a cool outfit to rock.
I'm an old man. But anyway, so I went in there, and they interviewed me, and at the end of the interview, they said, we want to offer you a job. I'm like, and I was kind of shocked. And so I said, okay, and I said, yeah, I'd like to work here. And then they said, but we have a dress code, and you need to dress with a suit and a tie. And so I just politely said, listen, I don't even know how to tie a tie, and I don't like to get dressed up. And if it means that I have to be dressed like this, then I don't really want the job.
Wow,
and
you turned it down.
Well, I wasn't really looking for a job. So anyway, they said, you're young. We think we can make an exception. And I was actually assistant to the vice president of this company.
Way.
So I was in this front office, and I think there might have been 200 or 300 people working in this office, as,
whatever.
Sales and stuff like sales and purchasing for the company.
You're this 19-year-old kid.
Yeah, 19. And so... anyway, they made the exception for me.
Right.
And the time that I was there, I totally ruined their dress code, because people would start to look, and it's like, why does that guy get to wear casual clothes, and we have to get dressed up every day? So people started to test it.
Dressing down too.
Right. And they couldn't really say anything, and anyway,
but the brevity. I mean, that's a lot of guts for you to say, like,
but it's not that I needed the job. I was just kind of, everything I do, I just play around and testing.
Right.
And so, okay, I got the job, I got the opportunity. Let me see what happens. But I really didn't want to get dressed up.
Cool. Yeah.
And so it's like, if I got to learn how to tie a tie and get dressed up and have suits in my closet, then it doesn't feel right.
Okay.
So anyway, that's how I got started, and I learned a lot. And then I ended up quitting that job because I wanted to do some missionary work in Haiti.
Okay, now let me just cut you off real quick. Let's take a quick break, and then now let's talk about your missionary work and where that took you. More of that after the break. Hey hustlers, let's talk about something really important real quick. Something that a lot of you I know can relate to, especially if you're running a business. And I'm talking about payroll. You know how hard it is and time consuming this is, especially that you have to do it twice a month. And as a guy who's been running tech startups for over 10 years now, this is something that I did not enjoy doing at all. It's not like it's because I don't like paying my employees. No, but it's already hard looking for funding to fund for your payroll, And then it's so much more harder if you're doing this manually. Luckily, I found something that I highly recommend that you try. And it's from our friends from Payroll Hero. And here's how Payroll Hero works. They use your employee's face as your primary biometric to avoid buddy punching and ghost employees. So unless your team can figure out a way to swap each other's faces, tracking time and performance will never be your problem again. Payroll Hero is also very consumer friendly because it's also based on web and mobile, and it's also cloud-based, so you never have to worry about your clunky old biometric machines. So now you can automate time, attendance, scheduling, HRIS, and a payroll platform wrapped all in one. We have a very special bonus for you hustlers listening on the Hustleshare podcast. All you need to do is go to www.payrollhero.ph and use the promo code Hustleshare to get a 60-day free trial. That's technically 4 payrolls that you can do all for free, so you can see how it works for you. And the beauty about it is there's no upfront payment needed to do this. So never worry about payroll again. With Payroll Hero, optimizing work productivity with happiness. And we're back from the break. We're still with PJ Entrepreneur, who apparently was PJ Missionary before. that sounds so cool. I'm curious before we continue on to your story about how you got into to the missionary part of your life or phase of your life. Who gave you the name PJ Entrepreneur?
Well, that's kind of a long story.
Okay.
Before I was Paul Jones.
Okay.
Okay, and the underwear that became
right.
famous. So I wanted to change my name, and my dad's nickname is PJ, and I'm an entrepreneur. So I thought, okay.
So it's legally you're PJ Entrepreneur now.
I could show you my passport. Well, actually, here's my old one.
No way.
Okay.
I'm literally...
Okay.
Wow, this is real.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It says Paul Jones Entrepreneur.
That's amazing. The only person that I have like customized, there's only 2 people that I kind of know that changed your name. The World Be Free, the New York Knicks before, right? No, I think it's from...
Oh, yeah.
From,
I vaguely remember that.
I think the Washington Bullets, if I'm not mistaken. And Meta World Peace lately with the Lakers.
Well,
And then Warrior, from Ultimate Warrior. He became Warrior and legally changed his name to Warrior. Wow, PJ Entrepreneur.
okay, well, I was actually inspired by Kim.com.
Kim.com.
Now, he used to be Kim Schmidt. Now, who would remember Kim Schmidt? There's probably, hundreds of thousands of them in the world. So, anyway, I heard he changed his name, and I'm thinking, okay, I want to change my name.
What's the process like? Because I get my last name gets murdered a lot.
Well, it all depends upon where you live.
Okay.
And so the last place where I was when I was in the U.S. Was Kentucky. I was in New
Louisville?
York, and I have a lot of stories that I won't really get into, but
Okay.
I'm a victim of eminent domain.
Eminent domain.
Eminent
What is
domain
eminent
is
domain?
where you own some property and the government just takes it away from you.
Wow.
Because they want to use it for the public good. You'd think you were in China, but anyway, that happened to
Really?
me, and I lost a building, and then I sued the government. And my recommendation is don't ever sue the government because they're way more powerful than you.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
Wow.
anyway, that was one of the reasons why I ended up leaving the country and starting a business in Thailand and going from there.
my
We didn't
gosh.
get into that yet, but let's get
let's
back to the
back
missionary,
or PJ
the
Missionary
work.
back then. Right.
So I worked for this company, I think it may be about a year and a half or almost 2 years. And I was very involved in my church youth group.
Yeah.
And so at that time, I wanted to go on this mission trip, and it was the first one that our church was doing, and we were going to go to Haiti. And we were going to build, I think it was a church the first time. We did a church and a clinic. and
How's
an
Haiti like?
orphanage.
Because, I mean, that's one
is the-
island, but there's 2 countries in that island, right?
One side's green, the Dominican Republic, and the other's all dried up and really
Correct.
terrible. It's
Correct.
the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere.
Right.
It's very sad. People are starving.
I remember-
I haven't been
Yeah.
back there lately. I mean, they still have a lot of
This
issues.
is pre the earthquake.
Oh yeah, this is 1977. I think.
Wow, it's a long time. But
70,
it was
77 or 78.
They're already like that. This is they're
They've been like
they're-
that for a long time. They were under
Wow.
dictatorship of Papa Doc, I think it was.
Right.
So anyway, I wanted to go on this mission trip, and so I told my boss,
Sure.
I want 2 weeks off. I get 2 weeks vacation. I want to take
Okay.
these 2 weeks. And they started giving me a hard time. They said,
Oh.
we don't think that you should go there.
This is still the same New York company that you were dressed down on,
but
right?
it was a very New York company that had mostly white people working there.
Okay.
Okay, at least definitely in the executive office.
Yep,
And
yep.
so, I mean, they didn't come right out and say it, but I knew that they didn't want me to go there
Sure.
because, there were a lot of black people there and they thought it was dangerous and they didn't want
Yeah.
anything to happen to me. I mean, it was like for my own good. But when they told me that, no, we're not going to let you take the vacation at that time because we don't think you should go,
You told them
then
you're going to Haiti.
I told them I'm going and
Yeah.
I'm quitting.
Oh.
So anyway, I quit and I went there, and it's
Wow.
basically the first time in my life when I came back that I didn't have anything to do, and I didn't.
So you made it out safely.
I went there. We had
So
a great
whoever
time. We
was listening to or working with PJ back then, he made it out.
Yeah, I think
safely.
at that time we built the foundation for the church and maybe the walls, but not the roof.
Okay.
So anyway, I came back. So when I came back, I didn't really have anything to do,
Okay.
and I was just looking in the classified ads, and I saw something where a guy was looking for somebody to basically take inventory from a bankrupt hardware company
Okay.
and turn it into something.
Wow, like storage. What's that show in History Channel?
It
Storage Wars.
it was like he had some ad
Junk.
looking for somebody to turn hardware inventory into a hardware business.
Wow.
So I responded to the ad, and he immediately called me, and I went to go visit him. And it turns out that this guy was an entrepreneur, and
Wow.
he was in the business of making infrared laser lenses.
Wow.
Okay, so basically see in the dark lenses.
Right.
And so his company needed to expand, and he wanted to do it quickly. And so what he did was, rather than go and lease a building, whatever, this was his next door neighbor.
Okay.
And so he went to the bankruptcy court, and he bought everything in the building
Yes.
and took over the lease. And he got a really great deal, but he ended up
Yeah.
with all this hardware stuff. And he had some extra space, and he thought, maybe I can turn this into something if I find the right person. So initially, I started out as an employee.
Okay.
And he said to me, you work hard, you could own part of this business. And one day, him and his partner, they gave me a third of the business.
No way.
And
Wow.
it started out, we were selling tools and hardware to the government. And at that time, like especially New York City, they weren't paying their bills on time.
Uh-huh.
So we had terrible cash flow problems. We'd have to pay for some things in 10 days or 30 days, and the government would pay in 90 days.
Ooh.
So we never had enough money, and it was
Right.
really painful.
You're always chasing
And
tail.
we
Right.
were, I thought we were going to go out of business.
Mm-hmm.
And then something really terrible happened to me. My car broke down, my transmission went.
Okay.
And I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. So I needed to raise some cash. So
Sure.
what I did was, this was an industrial park on a main highway, like Route 110 in New York near Adventureland, if anybody knows where that's at.
Right.
And so I pushed my car out to the edge of the road, and I put a big sign on the top, and it said Tool Warehouse with an arrow. And so that was like on a Sunday night. And Monday at lunchtime,
You went
the
back.
parking lot filled up with people buying things and paying cash, which we used to sell on account.
Way.
And so that transition, the company was Interstate Hardware Tool and Industrial Supply.
It's like a scene in the movie.
It transitioned into Tool Warehouse, which became a chain of seven stores
Wow.
and 2 wholesale companies, and I bought and sold companies. And
You got to fix your car, I assume.
well,
bought a new car.
actually, I left it there for a very long time. I bought another used car after that. But
Yeah.
if that terrible thing didn't happen to me,
Yeah.
And I was under such pressure to raise cash to try to fix my transmission. But then after it worked, it's like, I need to leave it out there because I couldn't get a sign permit, right? So I just parked the car out there. It was registered and nobody could do anything. It had this big box on top.
Right.
And then over, I don't know, maybe like almost a year, it was parked out there. And eventually I got the sign permit and put the sign up. And but
you got the car towed.
Basically, it turned into a $10 million business the next. Well, it went to like 3 million, and then we expanded a lot. It went to 10 million, and then Home Depot came. When Home Depot came,
changed the whole ball game.
Well, along the way, I was actually offered to buy the entire industrial park for $2 million, and it sounded like so much money back then.
Yeah.
But what happened is some investors bought it, and then they leased it to Home Depot, and they ended up knocking down all the buildings, and I had to move, and I moved to another, like at the entrance of Home Depot, but it was never the same after that because the way I had my store set up, people just loved to shop there because everything was thrown in bins, and it was like hunting for bargains. And, And then I moved to a smaller place, and it was
not the same.
more organized, and it felt more like a real store. And then there was a Home Depot right down the road, and so it's tough to compete with that.
Wow.
So I ended up closing some stores and selling my main store and another one. And then eventually they went out of business, and I never got paid for it.
When so this is a good question. So my first startup, I did that for 8 years, crash and burn. I lost everything.
Get back up?
No, it's not that easy.
I know. Believe me, I know.
How do you cope with that stuff? Because it's tough. It's gut wrenching. There's nothing that can But you had an empire already.
You have really bad days, but I do more than one thing, and a lot of people criticize me and tell me I need to focus on one thing and do that well and only do that. But in my life, I always have many, many things going on at the same time, and there always seems to be like some ray of hope in something that I'm working on.
Okay.
And so that's kind of what keeps me going.
Got it.
And I just keep experimenting until something works, and then when it works, and you got to be ready to go full force on it when something's working. And so my next thing was I had this real estate that I bought in upstate New York, which is the hometown of Tommy Hilfiger, and my plan was to buy real estate, rent it out, collect the rent, pay the mortgage, and so forth. So I started out, I actually bought a post office. I didn't know you could buy a post office.
Post office?
But I bought a post office.
You can only do that in games. I didn't know you can do that in real life.
I actually bought 2 of them. But what happened is I heard a post office was for sale, and then I got the information about the underlying lease, and it was expiring.
Right.
And so I made a contract to buy the building with me having the right to renegotiate the lease.
Yeah.
So I went to the post office. I said, "Hey, your rent's doubling." And so the value of the building was based on the current rent roll.
Wow.
And there was some apartments in there too. And so anyway, I bought that post office, and I financed it basically with putting a mortgage against another one of my buildings. Totally owner financing. And I did well. And then I thought that was so much fun that I went and bought a second post office, which is in Erin, New York.
Yeah.
Like it's an Irish type thing.
Right.
And I did the exact same thing. The lease was getting ready to expire, and I went to the owner and I made a ridiculous offer. And then that's also how I got the several buildings in the downtown area. I made crazy offers. One building, which was a department store, 30,000 square feet, and on 4 floors with an elevator and everything. It was listed for $600,000.
Wow.
Okay, and then now this is in New York State. I mean, it's upstate New York, but still 30,000 square feet. You can't build it for very much.
Right.
So it was listed for that, and then they reduced the price to $300,000.
No way, half.
300. Yeah, they're very wealthy people. Because there was a flood in 1972, and there was lots of government money, and basically they took the money from the flood and then invested it in the market and fixed their place up at the same time.
Okay.
But anyway, they were pretty wealthy people, 2 old retired guys that owned it, and they were in Arizona playing golf, and the pipes froze.
Oh.
So I heard
winner.
I heard
Yeah.
that the pipes froze and that they really wanted to get rid of it. So I made an offer on it. And I sent them an offer with a $10,000 check attached
Right.
to it. And by the way, I didn't have the $10,000 in my account.
We just
But
had
I
the
sent it by
bravado
FedEx.
to write that 10 grand.
Right? I sent it by FedEx to these guys.
in Arizona.
And they were in Arizona, and they got it, and then they got me on the phone, and the two partners was on the phone, and I was there, and they said, well, we got your offer. We're asking, $300,000. They said, well, we just have one question. How did you come up with the price? Now, the price was $91,263.
Yep.
Now, how did I come up with the price? I went like this on my calculator. I was like, okay, that one looks good. Because at that time, I was making an offer a day.
Wow.
It was like the beginning of the year.
Right,
and
right. So you were that liquid back then, like.
I didn't say I had the money. I mean,
Right.
I was able to come up with it,
Right.
Because I never expected them to accept my
bite,
offer. I was
right.
making just crazy offers for
Right,
the
right.
experience and the fun of it and everything.
Well, weren't you scared? That's scary.
Well, actually,
what
I was.
if you defaulted?
Well, no, I mean, I made it subject to getting a mortgage and
Right,
all
right.
this stuff.
Right.
And anyway, I managed to get basically temporary financing. I took a picture of the building and went to my banker, and I'm like, I need $100,000 to complete this deal.
Wow.
And they looked at it and said, oh, yeah, no problem. We'll put the money in your account.
No way.
And I signed a note that renewed like every 90 days. So I had to pay the interest every 90 days.
That's not
and
bad,
they
right.
had promised me permanent financing. So I was able to make a cash deal. It was an unsecured note.
Right.
Because they looked at it and they thinking, oh, this is probably worth $1 million. He only needs $100,000
Right,
to
right,
complete it.
right,
But
right.
I had extra money in my pocket after that.
Okay.
So anyway, that was one. And then I bought
That's pure hustle right there.
I bought an
Right.
HSBC bank building.
HSBC.
Well, they had moved out, and I'm not sure if they were called HSBC at that time. I think they were called Marine Midland, and then they had
Okay.
changed their name to HSBC slightly after that.
Okay.
Anyway, it was a vacant building, 3-story
Right, right,
building. And that was the one that was involved in the eminent domain case where the local government wanted to build a skating rink.
Oh.
And basically they condemned all these properties, and mine was the last
Without any
one.
compensation.
No, they give compensation.
Right.
But what happened is I wasn't a local. I was an out-of-town guy, and they made
Right.
deals with all the other people. The guy next to me had a building for, it was about half the size,
Yeah.
and he got paid $600,000.
Wow.
Okay, so I thought I should get at least $600,000. Well, they only had $60,000 left, so
Shoot,
that's what they ended
crazy.
up paying me. But they also knocked the building down before the judge had signed the order saying that they owned it. So I'm like, hey, you damaged my building. You know,
Right.
so they're like, well, we're going to get it anyhow. And anyway,
That's
so I
crazy.
sued them. Don't ever sue the government. That's my advice.
Okay, there you go.
Because it led to litigation and just being put
Yeah.
on lists and,
Yeah.
to the point where
Long
I thought,
ride.
you know what? I don't even want to live in this country anymore. And eventually I went to Bangkok on a vacation. And then I thought, let me make some back office over there, somebody to handle my domain renewals. And
So you still had business back in the States back then?
yeah,
Right.
I did. But eventually it got to the point where I
done,
don't want to be
right.
involved because there's a lot of litigation going on back and forth, and it just wasn't fun anymore. And
Sure.
so when I went to Bangkok, I started and I told my crew back in New York that, I'm going to move the company to Bangkok. And of course, everybody told me I'm crazy. And by 2008, there were no more people working in New York.
Wow.
And I
I
had
think
already,
everyone's in Bangkok.
come to the Philippines then, and things were really taking off. But I didn't feel the need to have U.S. employees anymore
Okay.
because of, taxes and just all
IRS,
kind of
whatever.
corporate problems.
Sure. Okay, now let's take another break, PJ, and when we come back, let's now talk about how you transitioned from Bangkok, made all the way to the region, basically touring Asia and seeing all the business opportunities, and how that led to your current hustle now, and more of that after the break.
Effective automation is the best way for businesses to stay competitive. And having a chatbot for your business lets you easily automate and optimize sales, marketing, and customer service in the digital age. Chatbot PH will build, train, maintain, and market your chatbot across all messaging platforms. Our team uses the latest AI technologies to enable you to better serve customers 24/7, 365. Set a meeting with us today. Message us now at m.me/chatbotph.
And we're back from the break for the last part. We're still with PJ Entrepreneur, and in this last part, we're now going to be talking about how he ended up in Asia. So PJ, before the break, you said that you now went to Bangkok. Why Bangkok again? How did you end up in Bangkok?
Well, I ended up there because somebody that I had done some marketing with,
Okay.
We were doing direct mail marketing, and he
Okay.
was actually a competitor of mine. And I followed this guy,
Okay.
and I really, he was like my enemy.
Got it.
And then one day, some guy that we both worked with told me I should reach out to this guy and get to know him. So I did. And we were in the same business, very, very competitive.
Right.
And then I understood what he was doing. And I said, I have this technology with a telephone number that can help you boost your response rate. And so what I did is I offered to process his phone calls to boost the response rate. So what we did is we put an 8-digit number on his mail piece, and we told him to call a toll-free number.
Okay.
And I built this equipment that would answer the call automatically.
Okay.
And
Not an answering machine. It's
no, this was built on Dialogic boards at the time. I don't even know if they use them anymore. But, before Asterisk and all that. But anyway, the people would call the number, and we would basically talk about what was in the mail piece. But many people don't like to read, so they get excited about it. It had to do with...
It's like a Kindle, per se.
It had to do with debt consolidation and refinancing and all that.
Right.
So anyway, the people who were interested would call the number and listen, and they would punch in their 8-digit number.
Wow.
Now, immediately, my equipment would look up the person's name, and then it would send an email to a debt consolidation company that would pay us $50 commission for every closed deal.
Wow.
Yeah. So that had nothing to do with the product he was also selling.
Yeah.
So we were making money on that, but my deal with him was, okay, you do the mailing, and it would cost at that time about 50 cents to mail each piece in an envelope. Yeah. Okay, so he would mail 100,000.
Sure.
And it would cost him 50 cents a piece, and 30% of the people would call. So
bad.
my deal was whatever names that you get after 30 days, I have the right to sell to them.
Nice.
So what that did was that saved me $70,000.
Yeah, worth of
mailing that I didn't have to mail to the people that weren't going to respond, and I mailed to the most responsive.
Nice.
And I also had the right to rent his names. You don't really sell them. In direct mail, you rent them for one-time use, and you get paid like 7 to 9 cents for each one. I had a mailing list broker.
Right.
And at one time, I still remember this. In 1 month, I walked out of the mailing list broker's office with a $250,000 check. Ooh. Because I was mailing like crazy.
Wow.
And my list was very responsive.
You're the mailman before Karl Malone.
So anyway, this guy was very grateful to me.
Okay.
And at that time, the postal rates went up, the response rates went down, and my business was going down, and I was kind of depressed. And he said, listen, you've made me a lot of money. Here's a round-trip ticket to go to Hong Kong and Bangkok for 2 weeks and just enjoy yourself. And he happened to be going on the trip at the same time, so we also visited one of our suppliers.
He became your friend
in
now.
Shenzhen, China. Yes. Yeah.
So,
he became my friend after maybe a year of working together.
Right.
And,
but there was a lot of animosity up front, for sure.
In the beginning, I used to follow this guy for years because he's my direct competitor. But the thing that happened is we went back to one of the companies, the financial companies that we worked with, and they were desperate for leads. So we went to them and we said, listen, we can double the amount of leads that you get.
Glenn Ross style.
Okay, if you double our commission too, per item.
Sure.
So anyway, they agreed to pay us a lot more, and then I took his volume and added it to what I was doing.
Okay.
And so he got paid a lot more money, and I just passed it right through to him, and I got mine.
It was symbiotic
and I got double.
now, right? Yeah.
And so that's how we became friends, and we both did very well for a long time.
That is awesome.
And
because,
so did
yeah.
the company, the financial company. You know, they were begging us for leads, and we our leads were the best. His salespeople would fight over them.
True. No, but
So anyway, it's just
yeah.
it's just kind of helping people, and then it totally changed my mind about competitors.
Yes, that's what I wanted to ask. Right.
I used to think, your competitor is your enemy. You have to do whatever you can to defeat him. But really, if you have the same customer base and maybe a slightly different product, even in some cases we had basically the same product, but different kind of pitches.
Yeah.
So why not work together with the same group of leads? And then
How do you approach? I guess the hardest part to do that is to create that first contact, because there's a lot of animosity.
Well, I was
first,
introduced by somebody that we both did business
with.
A really old guy who was sort of like a mentor to both of us, and he knew we hated each other. I wouldn't use the word hate, but
Right. There's
he knew we were very competitive.
Friction.
We were very competitive.
Okay.
And at that time, I was actually winning because they had some contest in the company, and I sort of pushed him out of first place.
Right.
And
so just like the Red Sox and the Yankees.
Yeah.
Like,
So
kind of
anyway,
thing,
this
right.
guy, I respected him a lot, and he said, "Hey, why don't you reach out to him and contact him?" And
Wow.
and
so there was a bridge.
Yeah.
Okay.
And see if you. But that totally changed my mind about competition.
That's amazing.
And like I like to right now, I love to reach out to people and say, how can we work together? How can we help each other? Even though we look like we're competitors, but maybe we could be way more powerful if we
consolidate.
Not even consolidate the business, but just sort of work together and,
in one form or
brainstorm about things and like I offered my technology to this guy. And it made him a lot of money, but it made me even more because,
absolutely,
he gave me the right to sell his mailing list, and he had no idea the value of what he was giving away. But he still benefited.
That's true. And again, that's with the forefathers and the tycoons in the States, right?
Yeah.
John D. Rockefeller with all these other guys, J.P. Morgan. They all worked together on one. They hated each other for sure, but they needed each other to succeed and go to the next level. Right. So again, JP. Sorry about that. PJ. JP Morgan.
You can't. Put
PJ. So now you're in Bangkok. What was it like? And you left everything. You said you were in a bad state.
I still had my company running the direct mail, and it was like going down and less and less employees and so forth. So what I did was I had about enough money to live fairly cheaply by eating street food and have a cheap apartment. And so
was it a different adjustment for you, because Asian food is different, right? Like,
yeah, but I'm an adventurer. I try everything.
Okay.
Believe me, I've eaten the crickets and and all kind of stuff. And I had pig's brain in China. I love eating exotic food.
Wow.
So that wasn't really an issue for me. But when I went there, I started to tell the story before about my prescription drug book.
Right.
I'm not sure if we were on that thing or not.
No, I think in the break we were discussing that.
Okay. So anyway, what had happened when I first went there on my first trip, which was a vacation. Okay, I flew over there, but I had been in my warehouse like the night before I left, and I saw this skid of books. I had written a book about how to get free and low-cost prescription drugs for people that didn't have insurance and didn't have the money to buy the drugs.
And you published this in Thailand?
No, I published this in New York.
Oh, wow. Okay. Prior to leaving.
But I had this in a warehouse sitting there, and I was having cash flow issues. So I'm thinking, like, how can I turn this into some cash? So I thought, okay, I'm going to go to Bangkok. I'm going to write a press release, and then I'm going to use faxblasted.com, and I'm going to send it to the 6,000 daily and weekly newspapers in the U.S. So I wrote a one-page press release that talked about the free and low-cost prescription drugs, and it's a 32-page booklet. And at the end of it, I said, send $5 to cover printing, postage, and handling. And I had an address in Washington, D.C. Wow. And so I went there and I sent out these press releases, and at that time it was really expensive to make a phone call to the U.S. So I didn't call home while I was there. I was actually borrowing somebody else's phone, and it was like $1 a minute to call there. So I didn't call there, and I sent out these press releases. But when I got home, the guy who was checking my mail and filling the orders, he hands me $15,000 in cash.
What?
plus the checks and money orders that went in the bank. What? And I was like shocked because I worked about 3 hours a day from the hotel lobby on a dial-up modem. And I remember when I paid my hotel bill, my internet bill was about the same as my staying in the room for 7 days. Because you had to pay by the hour or something, or by the minute. I don't remember exactly. But anyway, so I sent these out, and apparently a lot of them got published.
Wow.
And so all this money came in. And
that is amazing. And you were in dire straits again at that time.
Yeah, at that time, I was just looking to, like, what do I have that I can turn into some money? And I didn't know it was going to work, but I thought, okay, I'm going to relax. I'm going to send this, because I was interested in fax blasting technology at the time. And anyway, it worked. So that caused me to say, if I could make this much money in Bangkok, and I had such a great time over there,
and the cost of living is like a third,
should move there. Okay.
Yes.
So my plan.
What year was this?
That was 2000.
2000.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so my plan was kind of to go back and forth, and start a little business, and I was getting into email marketing.
Sure.
Okay. Well, I thought I wanted to get into it.
Okay.
So I formed a company. I think that I went there first time in August. By
Right.
November, I had already ended up forming a company, making relationships through people I know in the U.S. to introduce me to accountants and stuff like that. Got the company started. I hired one guy who said he knew how to do email marketing.
Sure.
And of course he didn't. And then we hired other ones, and they didn't know. Right. Anyway, we kind of figured it out together, and we bought a server. We put it in a data center in Hong Kong. Right. And got our internet connections. Right. And so we started to make a little bit of money with email marketing to sell books that I had written. And eventually we learned about Google AdWords.
AdWords.
So I had heard this thing about some guys in California selling words. And I thought, how can you sell words? Words are in a dictionary. How can you sell them?
Wow.
And so I remember it was like one Sunday afternoon, and I thought, I want to try to figure this out, because like people are starting to talk about it. Yep. And so I sort of figured out how to make an ad, and I made an ad to drive somebody to my website about some books I was selling. And I put like $50 in there, and at that time it was a penny a click.
Right.
Well, I made like $1,000 a day off of $50. And that went on for a long time. And it was like, you hit the jackpot. And of course, I increased my budget. But then more and more people are finding out about this, and the price is going up and up and up. Right. And, I think by the time I was not doing so much of the AdWords, or where we stopped making money, it was like about 30 cents a click. And we were just breaking even.
Yeah, but still, you already made bank.
So again, I was like, this is not good, because I'm starting to have cash flow problems. I have all these people, and we can't pay them.
Right.
So I thought, I have 50,000 people that went to my website and signed up with their email address. Some of them bought, some of them didn't. So I found out about affiliate marketing, and I took.
There you go.
I took this was for a satellite dish in. I sent it to my friend in Chicago. Basically, I sent one email, and I called up my friend. I said, listen, I just sent you an email. Click on the link. Sign up for a satellite dish. And he's like, well, my landlord won't let me put one up. I was like, just sign up for it. So anyway, he signed up for it, and immediately I saw $3 in my account.
Just like
which they paid me, basically just his name and phone number, permission to call, whatever. Yeah. So the next day, I sent a bunch of emails out, and I made about, I think it was $300 or $400.
Yep.
It's like, wow, this is amazing. All I did was hit the send button to my 50,000 of that one email. Right. And so that just opened up a whole lot of income for me. Then my whole shift changed to like have websites to collect names of people that are signing up for an interest, they're interested in a particular thing, and then send affiliate offers that they're likely to respond to. Right. And that grew into a pretty big business. Wow. And then I needed people to write copy for ads. And I used to import people from the U.S.
Yeah, because that's
Canada.
Not available in the Thailand
so,
back then. Right?
we had two companies in Bangkok, because they have all these rules about employing foreigners. So we had to make another company just so we could employ more foreigners.
Oh, wow.
And then
Okay.
we had issues with the immigration because people would, it's hard to get the permit.
Right.
So I ended up opening a coffee shop in the first floor of my building. I had expanded a lot, and we
Right.
got our own building. And the first floor was a coffee shop, and all the other floors were offices, and I lived on the top floor.
Right.
And so, anyway, we did pretty well, made a lot of money.
Yep.
But then one winter, I was coughing because the air was really bad in Bangkok at that time.
Right.
So I went to Hong Kong, and I was like, okay, I'm a little better. And then I had this friend that had a call center in Ortega Center.
Yep.
And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to go fly over there and see what it's like. And I remember...
So you've never been to the Philippines prior to that?
No.
And what year was this?
This was 2006, I think.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so I booked a flight from Hong Kong to Manila. I have no idea what I'm doing. I land in Manila. I tell the taxi driver, take me to buy a SIM card. Okay.
Wow.
So he bought the SIM card, and then I don't remember where I stayed, but anyway, I ended up at 4 o'clock in the morning at Ortegas Park, and
Right.
I'm seeing like McDonald's is crowded with people.
Yeah. Because the
and
call center
I
industry
was
is
like,
booming.
wow, this is unbelievable.
Yes.
So anyway, I was just kind of checking out the area. Okay, I go back to Bangkok, and I start coughing again. I thought it was just like I had this cold or whatever that I couldn't get rid of, but it was in the air. So I started coughing again. And then after a couple of weeks, I thought, I'm going to go back to the Philippines and see if the air is better, because I was feeling like I can't live like this.
Right.
I don't want to go
Your-
back
your-
to
your-
I don't
your
want to
health
go
is
back
on
to
the
New
line,
York
right.
or anything like
Right.
that. So anyway, I came back here and I stopped coughing. And I thought, this is a sign from God. I must open up a
There
business
you go.
here.
So imagine if you Filipinos are listening to this, right? And you think we have it bad, people move here because we have better air, apparently. No, because there was a recent ranking too. Like, there's like out of the 10 best air in the region, we have like 6 or 5.
It's just different things that are in the air. I forget what it is, but whenever I feel it, I can go to the internet and I can see, this one hit 30 parts per million.
Right.
That's why.
And that you're going to suck that one way or another.
Yeah. So
Right.
anyway, I came here and I thought, okay, I'm going to rent a place. And I rented a place in Emerald Mansion. Okay,
Here,
it's a residential building.
Here.
And then I hired a couple of people, and I had people coming in and out of there. And then the building started saying, you can't have a business in your home.
Right.
And so I ended up renting a place at across the street, Strata 100.
Got it.
And I think it's like 200 square meters.
Right,
and,
right.
And we started there, and
Right.
and it was actually the first. I think it was maybe 16 months. I had given myself a year to be successful or come back,
Right.
and I wasn't successful. But I also wasn't giving up because
Right.
I'm like, I got all this money invested in here. I can't.
Correct, yeah.
I can't just walk away.
Yeah.
And I had this guy who had.
What were you doing at that back then? Was it the same thing in Bangkok?
We were doing some automated telephone stuff. We were experimenting with, and also, in Bangkok, I had hired some people to do the AdWords.
Okay. So that was still going on, right?
Yeah, but in the beginning, we were just kind of struggling a little bit,
Okay.
trying to find our way. But about 16 months, we found our way.
There you go.
And,
Boom.
And things just took off. And then my business grew like 10 times in a couple of years.
Whew.
And I was making a lot of money and paying a lot of people. I mean, I had people all over. I don't remember the exact numbers, but more than 100 between here and,
Right,
and Bangkok.
right.
And we had like 30 interns and opened a bunch of other. I was in the employment agency business and I had a talent company and
Wow.
different things. But then it got to the point where it wasn't so much fun anymore, and I was actually still involved in some litigation in the U.S.
Because of the building.
Of what happened before, and I wasn't able to transfer money from the U.S. to here, and I just thought, you know what, this is not fun anymore. I'm just going to stop.
Just like that.
And
Wow.
I'm going to help everybody get good jobs or start businesses, and I'm going to relax and travel. And anyway, I traveled for 8 years.
8 years. So just walk us through briefly to that. During 8 years of all this time grinding and hustling and,
Well, I'm still
pulling
grinding
one.
and hustling, but there are small ideas. I wasn't focused
Right.
on making money because I did okay and I had enough to spend.
Yeah. 8 years.
Yeah, and I spent a lot of time in China because I could see that if you could cut out all the middlemen, you
Yes.
could do really well. So along the way, Amazon FBA happened, and because Amazon only used to sell their own stuff.
Correct.
But
And
then-
now they source it out to China.
Right, and then AliExpress and Alibaba, all this stuff.
So you've
happened
seen
at the
this
same
happen
time.
firsthand,
But
right.
I could see that they have a special shipping called e-packet service. Okay, and at that time, for 50 grams costs $1 to ship to the U.S. with a tracking number.
No way.
And if you were to send that same package from, say, Los Angeles to Chicago, it would cost like $3 or $4.
Yeah.
And
FedEx,
I think
wherever,
I
UPS.
think no
Right.
tracking number on that.
Yeah.
So I saw
So they're more advanced
a
in
huge
China.
opportunity,
Right, right.
and then the thing is when I met my friends, of course they're not going to tell me their secrets.
Right.
That's why I rented a place in their building so I could. I had a
Immerse
home. I
yourself,
had a home in
yeah.
Hong Kong and a home in Bangkok and a place here too. And so I traveled between all the places.
Right.
But when I decided I wanted to,
Stay
be
put.
stay in one place. Well, not really one place, but I wanted to be in China sometimes. I was like
Okay.
going back and forth from Hong Kong to China, and I rented this place. It cost me like $60 a month for a 1-bedroom apartment at that time.
Wow.
And then I got 3 different internets because I never put up with bad internet.
Right.
Anyway, it's terrible. But because I was hanging out in their building, I got to be friends with them and have dinner. And come to their office and talk business.
Right.
So over a little more than a year, I finally found out, okay, how do you send this stuff? And they were using eBay shipping tools, had some special deal with the post office in China, did a joint venture with the post office in the US.
Yeah.
But then eBay figured out that I was shipping stuff that was not being sold on eBay through their shipping tool, and they cut that off.
Okay.
So then I had to start over and make my deal directly with the China Post. But China Post only had, what was it? Amazon? No, Amazon was the third one.
Alibaba.
They had eBay first, then Alibaba, then Amazon, then PJ Entrepreneur. But they didn't have anything built for a small time operator. Everything was with Amazon and eBay and all that they had APIs working but they had to build something for me, and I started testing it, and the communication first of all with Chinese and English.
Right.
I only speak English.
Right.
And I did find one guy that worked at China Post who helped me get signed up, and he was like my advocate inside of China Post to make this happen. But they kept changing the program like every day, and it would break, and then how do you fix it? And then I shipped 1,000 test packages, and 30% of them got lost.
Crazy.
Now, they actually didn't get lost. They were put someplace. I put them in a box instead of a bag, so they got put on a shelf. Anyway, I canceled my whole thing, and I didn't follow through with that.
Okay.
But I realized it was an opportunity, and then I went on to other things, experimenting with many things.
All right. Now, PJ, last few questions before we wrap this up. How did you end up here in the Philippines, and what is your hustle, and what are you enabling now? Because you've been through a lot.
I came here because I needed to breathe.
Okay. It's the air, guys.
And the funny thing is, I came back here again last year. I think it was in February. And I went to Palawan, you call it?
Palawan, yeah.
Palawan. Okay,
Yeah.
so I was in Shenzhen. And again, there's a problem with the bad air in China. In the wintertime, it was really bad. And it's like 6 weeks I'm coughing. It's like, I got to get out of here.
Right.
So I'm going to the Philippines. So I landed in Manila, and then I went to Davao and Cebu and Palawan and Zamboanga. But anyway,
all
as soon
pristine.
I stopped coughing immediately when I got here. And so then after that, I think it was in April, I brought my Chinese friends over here.
Okay.
Because I've been telling them for many, many years that
check it out.
They should open an office in the Philippines because you guys know how to read and write in English.
Right.
And Chinese, yes, they can write English. They don't
Right,
speak
right.
English too well, but it's not
different.
very good. It's like
Different level here.
It's like
Yeah.
I call it word salad. They just
Right.
throw a whole bunch of words up and it
Word salad.
Yeah, and for eBay that kind of works because the
Right,
way
right,
the
right,
search
right.
engine works. But for
But
other things, it
for the conversational English, that's totally different. Like,
and,
what?
And even for
Yeah.
writing listings of products, sometimes it's very awkward. So anyway, they came over here, they looked around, and then it's like, okay, we're gonna rent a company apartment and
Sure.
rent an office, and we're already expanding in a second office now, and things are going really well, and I see big opportunity for Filipinos
Absolutely.
to grow here, and I've been here helping them because I want to make sure they have a success.
Yeah.
There's actually two reasons. I want to help my friends,
Sure.
but I feel like I owe something to the Filipino people.
Thank you.
For
Right.
making it possible for me to travel around and enjoy my
Absolutely.
life for the last
And-
8 years.
And breathe good air.
Yeah, really good air. Yeah.
So, PJ, before we wrap this up, I did not know that I was going to get this much today in this interview. No disrespect.
Well, I
You
didn't-
sent me a lot of stuff.
I
but
didn't know either. I
Right.
was coming here to find
Yeah,
out
there
about
was-
chatbots.
There was a total journey. It was crazy. I have nothing but respect for you. But again, there's this. You said it earlier. It's never linear. You've been through so many ups and downs.
It's a roller coaster ride, and sometimes it is so scary.
Yeah.
And but when you ride a roller coaster, if it doesn't go off the rails and you get killed, it's
Yeah.
still fun when you get off.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a thrill.
And
You'll,
so-
you'll want more.
So-
now let's talk about tips, PJ.
Okay.
Right. You've been through so many ups and downs and whatnot. How do you keep your sanity? What's your strength? Because this is not easy. You've been through it all. Like, oh my God. Like, I've been through a loss and a win. That felt like so much.
Yeah.
But that's just like in less than 10 years or 10 years max. But I've learned so much. But for you, you've done it so many times. Win and after loss and after win and whatnot.
Well,
and
so
we always
you
forget
already
that.
know the secret. You just said you learned so much.
Correct.
Okay, so my thing is I do not have fear of failure, and I don't care what anybody thinks of me. And I get a lot of advice from people around me, like when I wanted to move to Bangkok, people were like, you're crazy, you're going to go out of business. And I'm like, yeah, but I want to try, I want to have an adventure. I don't know where it's going to end up. And many times it's sort of like jumping out of an airplane and hoping the parachute's going to open. I
Right.
get a hunch like, oh, I think I want to go to Bangkok. I think I want to go to Manila
Right,
because
right,
I can
right.
breathe there. So I think
Right.
I want to make a business there. So I
Sure.
just did it. I rented a place. I'm like, okay, now I got to figure out like, how am I going to make some money here?
Right.
So I hired a few people and helped me experiment with some
Right.
things, and it works, it doesn't work, and and eventually you get it to work.
Sure. But what do you look for? Because I'm pretty sure you have a playbook now from doing it from place to city to city to city and whatnot. When you first start to putting up something, do you look for people first or do you look for the opportunity first?
Well, the secret, looking back,
Right.
the secret is finding the right people, and generally you don't find those people that are looking for a job. You have to network with people and get to know them, and then solve some of their problems. Like they
Got
might
it.
be interested in something, or they might have a dream for their own business.
Okay.
I have many, many things in the pipeline right now that are about ready to come together in something that is going to probably be the biggest thing that I've ever worked on.
Wow.
And I've been working on it for like 8 years, just kind of relationships with people. And
Sure.
my network is just unbelievable. And
Got it.
and I don't always, I don't really look to make money on something. I always connect with people.
Right.
And some people have great businesses because I connected them. And I didn't make anything from it.
Got it.
Other times I make some money. But what I'm putting together now is sort of going to be like, I want to help other entrepreneurs use my sort of infrastructure and all my
Yeah. Oh, your life's
all
work.
my contacts.
Yeah.
Like for instance, somebody wants to sell on, they want to do e-commerce.
Right.
Well, the most difficult thing to selling is buying. Buying quality product from a reliable source and
Mm-hmm.
a reliable shipper. If you try to do it, there's a lot of drop shipping programs out there, but
Right.
most people fail because the people cheat them or they cheat their
Right.
customers, and eventually they give up.
Right.
So the right thing is what I built over the last 8 years is helping my friends, and
Okay.
they trust me, And so they have this infrastructure, and I'm trying to create something that will take that and sell in other areas like social media marketing. I'm making friends with a lot of influencers, especially here in the Philippines.
It's a totally different ball game here. Right.
You know, Millennials United.
Right.
Okay. I just was at an event with them. They had a bunch of vloggers there.
Right.
And I met a lot of really great people.
Right.
I also met a guy, What's Up Tony? Do you know him?
Yep.
Okay, well, you know, I saw his videos, and I met him in person, and we had some discussions about like, hey, what's up, Tony? Do you think you'd love to have a clothing line one time?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know if it can ever happen, but I do things like talk to people like that and set up some meetings. I have some things I'm working on right now, and I really want to try to help this guy to see what it could turn into.
Okay.
And not just him, but I mean, there's a lot of people, but that's one I just was chatting with him earlier today, because we set up a meeting, and I have 2 other meetings that I'm going to go to sort of on his behalf to pitch the idea.
Wow.
Can we do this with very little capital and just experiment?
Got it. Now, last question, PJ, before, unfortunately, we don't have much time anymore, but my last question. So now you find the right people, right? You said that's the most important thing. But working with them is a totally different, because they're all unique at one point. Do you have a certain approach to delegation and working before you even delegate? What's your style like?
Well, I try to find people that can do things like, for instance, I'm terrible with accounting and money.
Okay.
And I have one woman here that she's like my best friend.
There you go. So you cover for the weaknesses first, right?
So anyway, she's helped me with a lot of success dealing with the paperwork and everything, and she's also helping me with my Chinese friends, because it's very difficult to just show up in the Philippines and deal with the SEC and thousands and thousands of paperwork and signatures and fall
like
in line
Singapore.
and wait some more and have a seat, sir. And anyway, so I try to do the things that I'm best at, and I didn't always work like that. I try to do everything, but if you get the right people and they have faith in you, and you help each other out and build something together, you gotta definitely have a good team. You can't do it on your own.
Absolutely. Thank you, PJ. Now, PJ, if they want to follow you and they get to know more and get to work with you, and you have so much up your sleeve, how do they reach you?
Well, the best place is on Facebook, but if you go to my domain, pj-entrepreneur.com,
there you go.
It will forward to my Facebook page. But there is going to be a membership site. It's going to be free membership, and then some other levels of paid membership at some time in the future. So just remember pj-entrepreneur.com.
Yep.
And you'll find me on Facebook right now, but I'm probably going to be doing some things on social media.
Sounds good.
And maybe even some personal visits.
There you go. So you got to catch this guy, because he's going to be very busy. Last thing you know, he's in another city again. So if you do, please do reach out to him. But again, this has been the latest episode of Hustleshare. If you like this episode, please don't forget to follow and subscribe to your favorite podcast app. And again, thank you very much, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace.